All right, we're going to go ahead and call the public safety hearing to order. So let's go ahead and sit down and shut up. All right, we have a really packed schedule today, and we also have to break. Members of the committee have to be in Appropriations full committee at 2:30. So we're going to have to break to go do that as well, and that will probably consume about 20 minutes of our time today. So what we'll do first is we're going to head through each of these different programs and try to keep them focused on the FY18 budget. So if you focus on the FY18 budget for today, if members of the committee have questions that pertain to other operations, I'm happy for them those to be asked. But for today's purposes, let's focus on those requests, the changes in the budget that come from the governor's office, and let's go over those requests. And then there may be a few other people that have asked to have a little bit of time, or we'll try to work into the schedule as we can. We'll just see how that plays out today. And then we'll be meeting again tomorrow, and I think that's from 3. Is it 3 to 5?
Yes, sir.
I think 3 to 5 tomorrow. We'll also be meeting to hear the judiciary's request. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Greg Dozier, the Commissioner for the Department of Corrections, and ask that you go ahead and start your presentation, sir. Did you get rolled?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll be very cognizant of the time. And we have handed out a PowerPoint that mirrors your tracking sheet. So if you'll give me the opportunity, I'll go through the PowerPoint because I think it'll be a little bit more brief. But it also ties directly to your tracking sheet if you want to match up the two. So, for example, on page 1 of our document, you'll see that our first item is related to health care, and that amount is $32,246,161. Most of these items are actually just a reoccurrence of the items that was in the amended budget, so I'll spend my time talking about the two main new items. First is a 2% increase for our contract with AU, basically their pay raise. As you know, there's a 2% increase recommended for state employees, and that $1.3 million is related to that pay raise for those doctors and nurses and admin staff related to that contract. The second item is to increase funds for 8 dental health care positions. We talked about that in the joint appropriation, but this would add to our current 9 hygienists. It would allow us to get an additional 5,500 cleanings a year. As you know, we have 54,000 inmates. Last year we did 56,000 dental appointments and was able to do 4,800 cleanings, but we still have a long way to go when you look at actually getting at least 1 annual cleaning a year. The next item is related to 18 additional mental health positions. That item is $1.8 million. When you look at our mental health population, since 2010, it has increased 8.23%. We currently have 9,651 inmates that have a mental health classification. Of that, we have 1,458 that are a mental health level 3 or higher. That's equivalent to the severe and persistent mental illness, and actually require us to have a mental health treatment norm. So these positions, as we look at it, would be 4 activity therapists, 1 clinical position, 2 psychologists, and 2 psychiatrists, and would help as we have these mental health treatment areas for these violent offenders who are a level 3 and higher. As you look on down the healthcare budget, you'll continue to see the 5 items that are pharmaceutical items that mirror what's already been covered in the supplemental budget, and that is the HIV medicines, the generic prescriptions, the psychotropic prescriptions, the chemotherapy, and the Hep C. That totals just over $19.4 million of that $32 million. The last item in healthcare I'd like to cover is the second year funding of the electronic health record system. As you know, in the supplemental, this committee supported and the Senate supported the first phase of that. The second phase is $8.7 million, and that covers the $32.2 million. The second item in healthcare is really a pass-through through us, and that's the funding for DJJ. DJJ, as you may...
Let me ask you a question real quick. Yes, sir. Just going back to the $8.7 million on your electronic health records, that now is that tied into the, in getting the reduced rate pricing for Hep C medication? Is that tied into that as part of?
It is.
It is.
How it works is currently today, to be part of the 340B clinic, our offenders have to be part of the electronic health record system. So today what is happening is those offenders that are HIV positive and Hep C positive, they are being currently enrolled into AU's system, but really need to be enrolled into our system. So as we expand AU's Cerner EHR system into the full Department of Corrections system, it'll make it fluid as far as both 340B and all other inmates.
By having all this in the electronic medical records.
That's accurate.
Okay.
That's accurate. As you look at the second item, the Department of Juvenile Justice is transferring $23 million from their budget over to ours. As you know, they have both the YDC operations as well as the RYDC operations. I believe in August of this year, they sent a letter out to each legislator talking about them moving forward with partnering with Augusta University. In that letter that I read that came from Dr. Kill and Commissioner Avery Niles, it talked about many of the improvements that they hope to see, such as shared services approach, the mobile CAT scans, telemedicine, on-call nurses, and of course the purchasing power of AU through the Cardinal contract. So as that contract comes over to be administered by our agency, we believe that there will be efficiency seen through that process as we move forward, creating better health care for those juvenile offenders. If you flip to the next page, you'll see the Metro State Reentry Center. Last year, you guys provided the bond money to open up half of that facility. In this year's bond package is the second phase of it. But we'll be asking for half of the facility for 6 months operating. That's 500 beds that would open January 1st. Just a reminder of the 18,000 offenders that come back to our communities each year. Approximately 6,000 come from the metropolitan area. This would give us an opportunity to actually enact much of that reentry effort that we've discussed in the past in this facility and hopefully see that recidivism rate reduce. The next item is a law enforcement pay raise, and that's basically just the annualized cost of those 105 investigators and 25 canine officers that was approved in the supplemental budget.
Mr. Commissioner, can we jump back just one thing?
Yes, sir.
Back to the takeover and the coverage that's going to be provided to the Department of Juvenile Justice's portion of the admin cost, and then also looking at the secure commitment, the YDCs and the RYDCs, all of that, handling all that cost. How are you going to absorb it in terms of your staff administratively?
Great question. We had our initial kickoff meeting just last week with Augusta State University, DJJ, and OPB, and we discussed just that. The question we're still trying to define, and we have a task team looking at it, is what is the scope of services as far as the administrative side that the Department of Corrections is going to be required to provide. Mm-hmm. We do believe that we're being asked to do the administrative side, not just pure pass-through. So as we look at that scope of work and see what type of supervision that DJJ's current staff does, that'll help more define how we're going to administratively attack it. But as you see, that is still open as far as the budget goes.
Okay, and then the Metro Reentry Prison. Explain to me what the steps are in terms of, or what the goal is with that particular prison.
Absolutely. We believe this will be a unique facility, just as we've talked about Walker State Prison being a unique faith and character prison, Lee State Prison down in Albany being a unique evidence-based programming prison. We believe that this will be an epicenter to show how we can actually partner with the community both on health care needs as they're transitioning out, employment, housing, counseling, mentoring, all of those different effects that are so critical to making sure that it's a flawless handoff from being incarcerated going back into the community. So the goal would be that someone has their needs assessment done when they come into the diagnostic facility. We'll see what they need as far as education, vocation, mental health, substance abuse, and the goal would be is to get all that completed prior to that, and we haven't determined if it's 18, 24, or 36 months before release. We're still having that discussion. But prior to them hitting that magic time frame, they would get their needs profile completed, come to this facility with the sole goal of transitioning back into the community, and at the end of that process going into a TC, whether it's a TC on Ponce over here or it has a TC component inside Metro to where they can actually earn $1 and start paying back that child support, saving money so they can re-enter and have a smooth transition.
The Department of Community Supervision also has requested in their budget, and I don't expect you to know that, but they are doing similar things with coordinators, the community coordinators, to go out and try to help build relationships between the state and local employers, so as to create a pipeline, if you will, of opportunities for those that are coming out of prison to find jobs. So I'm curious as to whether we are duplicating services or what's the distinction that
Right.
matters here.
I actually think it's going to be a great partnership, and we are aware of that. I can't tell you the number of resources they have. I'm just not that familiar with how many community coordinators they have at this point. But they're doing a lot of gap analysis in the community. They are trying on a limited basis in our transitional centers to get individuals in there to see those that are higher risk, higher needs profile. I believe this would just be hand in glove as far as the facility operation, and we have reached out to them and asked them to come on board with us as far as we implement being a key role in this process. So I actually don't think it'd be duplicative. I think it'd actually be enhanced.
Right, and then we're also, the committee is keen on understanding and seeing what the progress is of this interaction between the reentry facility and the actual employers, excuse me, those that
Right.
actually employ, and how many that come out of the reentry program that are actually in a job that this facility, this Metro facility, has linked together. So we really want to see what the data
Okay.
is on that.
We will definitely, as we start that up, we'll do the connection so we can present that to you guys.
Okay.
As you know, we're very proud of the transitional centers. We have approximately 2,500 slots in the TCs across the state, and the majority of those individuals get pretty good paying jobs. And for the most part, when they come out, the employers try to retain them if they'll stay in those communities. So we believe we're going to have high success in that area, and would love to come back next year and hopefully give you some of that data.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We were on page 3 of the handout down at education and vocation enhancements. As you look at that $3.7 million, the first item is to expand the GED fast track in our detention centers. As you may or may not know, we have 7 detention centers across the state, house about 2,000 individuals, which we believe, don't believe, the last count we had about 50% that did not have their GED. So as we look at where the next step goes to get beyond the 2,000 GEDs that we presented to you guys last committee that we're going to hit this year, we believe this will be a big win for us. As you know, they're coming into us for a short spurt, so that's why it's a fast track. We'll be identifying those folks that within a 6-month period within a 180-day period could get that GED, and we'll be getting them through that process at the same time be still working them as well. So very proud of that initiative. The next item is to purchase some literacy and math software, $568,000. Some of those softwares that we're currently considering is things such as Reading Horizon, that's a literacy program, Brain Pop, that's a math and literacy, and social studies software. And then the big expense is really around the math softwares, and we're still trying to identify which one of those we would implement into the system. But we need to augment the teachers that are currently in the system with this software to really move us to the next level as far as pushing forward. Well, really all the areas, LRR, which is basically just limited reading and writing, ABE, which is preparing them to get into the GED program, and then GED as well. So these will actually help in all those arenas. The third item is to expand our vocation technical programs in 10 state prisons. The new money is $927,000, but the total is $1.7 million. It includes a redirect of some prior monies from last year that were one time, that was related to equipment, our Chromebooks, some of the additional facilities that we had. But basically what that'll do is fund one instructor and materials for each of those 10 facilities. And we would be expanding programs such as the forklift program, safe serve food manager, soft skills, customer service, horticulture, and several others. And we'd really be focusing on those big medium prisons that we have where we know those individuals are coming home, and we're really needing some additional vocational training in those. The next item is to convert 30 teachers from part-time to full-time at $1.4 million. Currently, as we talked about, I believe at the last meeting, we have 175 part-time teachers, and we have 35 full-time teachers for a total of 210. Currently, that gives us basically one teacher per facility. What 30 conversions would do is give us 2 teachers per facility so that we could run both day and night and expand hopefully to some weekend training. We have limited space in these prisons, but we can actually expand that space by having additional teachers, meaning that right now we're using it for a classroom for a set period. If we can get additional teacher, we can actually run several classes in that limited space that we have. The last item in that area is to expand our vocational and technical programming at 6 transitional centers. That would be basically $60,000 in each facility. We're having great success in getting some folks into the technical schools and getting that training. And once again, several of the areas that would be focused on is forklift and heating and air is 2 of the main ones that we've been dealing with in the vocational area. We have had one success with welding, but those are the 2 main ones. The last page, page 4, you'll see just the statewide changes that you'll see in everyone's budget. That's the 2% pay raise that's in everyone's for $10.6 million. The employees' retirement system increase for $397,000, and then 2 reductions of $268,000 and $194,000 for the insurance premiums and the merit system assessment. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the items that are in the 18 budget, and I would be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. Chairman Powell, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Commissioner, sorry I was just a few minutes late getting in. I don't know if this has been addressed. OPB's recommendations of moving the healthcare network from DJJ over to y'all.
Yes, sir.
To combine it with y'all's. We had talked, and I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. I've been thinking about this. My understanding is that they're going to put the management that's currently at DJJ that oversees that medical to be sure that the medical services are being properly delivered. They're going to, I think they've proposed putting it at the medical school.
Yes, yes, sir.
And I've got a concern with that because there wouldn't be a check and balance to be sure that it's being properly administered. Is that, am I right on how this is set up that they're going to?
Yes, sir. I believe you asked about the positions that's currently at DJJ, and my understanding is those positions will flow over to the AU contract as we shift into that July 1st. I mentioned to the chairman earlier that he asked a similar question and mentioned to him that we had a great meeting last week. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the scope of services is for us. Part of that discussion was how do we administer it and what type of staffing may that take. And so I think your question is kind of in line with what we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I guess I think what I'm just saying directly is that management should be moved to the Department of Corrections to be sure that those services are being rendered on a straight up and down instead of Augusta College doing the management and the services.
Okay.
Do we have a dollar amount on what that what those salaries would be?
I can get that for you, but I do not have that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Commissioner, going back to the increase, this is the line item 1989, deals with your vocational technical programs in the 10 state prisons.
Yes, sir.
How many prisons do we have the tech and vocational programs in currently, and then which prisons do you plan on moving that program into if it's funded?
Yeah. Do y'all have that list with you? We have a list of them. I know it's Johnson, Wilcox. Thank you. And then do you know how many right offhand we have vocational training?
Every prison has some form of vocational training. We're looking to expand it, especially most of these are our big mediums, the list that we have there.
Yeah.
The ones that you want for the 10 that you're talking about. Yeah.
So the 10 that we've identified would be Dooley, Calhoun, Wilcox, Autry, Emmanuel, Johnson, Washington, Macon, Smith, and Ware.
Okay. And then what are the programs going to teach?
It will be a certification of some sort, whether it's horticulture, welding. Welding's probably not going to be it because we've expanded welding pretty much to where it needs to be. But it'll be forklift operating, heating and air, safe serve. The food industry is a big one that our offenders are able to go back and immediately get employed. So we'll be doing that food safety prep for them. Some customer service soft skills. That's something that most of our population is missing. Those are the main ones that we're looking at, but obviously we'll be looking at the community and what jobs are needed. One of the things that we've been talking to is I was able to meet with the utility contractors yesterday when they were up here for their day at the Capitol. I met with them before they came in, and we talked about what type of electrical certifications do they need and how can we provide them. So as we work with those different industries, talked to the asphalt industry the other day, and they're looking for a certain skill. So as we talk to those industries and they're identifying jobs, these programs will go towards those jobs that we find. But those are some of the main ones that we're going to be doing that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. So the just under the $1 million that we're allocating for this, and then there's the redirect money that's going to come out as well and
Yes.
be used for that. Part of that is developing those particular programs or training programs that you're going to, for each of the 10 prisons.
Well, they're developed. What'll happen is we'll contract with the technical school close by, and they'll come provide them. So
Okay.
we'll be once the monies are appropriated, we'll be sitting down with those vocational schools, talking about the jobs that are available and identifying which ones can come into those prisons. And what it typically is it's about $70,000 for the position that comes in, and $100,000 for the materials to actually teach the class. And so that's how the budget's laid out for those 10 facilities.
So you're going to contract with the local technical college to provide the service.
That's right.
And this is just a pass through for that program.
Well, yes, sir.
You're not going to hire new people.
No,
Okay.
we will not hire new people. All of our vocational technical programming is partnered with our technical school. The main reason is so when they leave and get into the communities, they leave with a technical certificate that comes from that local school. And when they apply for a job, they have that credential.
Okay. And then could you explain what the CTE Social Services Program Consultant position is going to do?
Yes. I think I skipped over that. I apologize. That we have 2 today, and what that is basically works with our vocational schools across the state. The Department of Corrections is divided into 3 regions. Today we've self-identified 2 positions that could go into that role, working with the technical schools and our prisons to make sure those programs are efficient. The students are seeing it, the teachers showing up, and they work with the school to make sure we're maximizing that program. This position would be for our 3rd. So right now we're asking 2 people to cover the whole state. We need 1 more to cover our 3 regions.
And lastly from me, I've got is 19.9.5. This deals with to expand vocational technical programs in 6 transition centers.
Mm-hmm.
So explain, if you will, to me why we're going to train folks in the prison system, and then we're going to add more training to them
Right.
as they move into a transitional center. Why would we do that? It
These
seems
would
like
be
you're
for
doubling
the
up.
These would be for the ones that did not get it while they were in the prison system. As they go into the transitional center, it gives them an opportunity to get that training as they're going home. And so we've had some great success up at the Arundel TC. We have partnered up there with the local school to do welding. So instead, when they go to the transitional center, instead of going out and getting a job, they're going in and getting the certificate. And then once they get the certificate, we have jobs lined up that they would start working. And in most cases, they get to retain that job when they get out. The welding program up there has worked wonders, and we want to replicate that across the state.
And if we're doing that with our prison population, instead of going through a transition center, then in a way we're skipping that step, the need to go to a transition center. So
Well, as you know, we've got 54,000 inmates, and hitting every inmate while they're in our prison system doesn't always happen, both for all the programming, education, and everything else. You get a limited number of slots with a lot of people. So this just gives us one more avenue before they go back to the community to get a skill that hopefully will keep them from committing a crime and coming back to see us.
And how do you use the opportunity of getting a technical or vocational training while you're in prison or while you're going into the transition center? How do you use that as an incentive for good behavior?
You're not going to get in there if you're getting major DRs. You're going to get pulled out of the programs. It's going to be the slots are going to be made available to those that are actually trying to meet their needs profile. And so it's very much an incentive inside the prison.
And the needs profile is what you were talking about earlier, the initial assessment.
Yes, sir.
This is health care, but it's also behavioral needs.
That's right. You've got to go through some cognitive rehabilitation, which is how you think. You've also got to look at your health. You've also got to look at your educational background, both schooling and vocation. And so we've got a series of criteria as far as substance abuse and mental health being the other two. And so depending on where your needs is and your risk will depend on how many classes you need. Very similar to a college curriculum. You know, if I wanted to when I got my criminal justice degree, they laid out every year what I needed to do.
Right.
When you're an inmate, you get laid out what do I need to do to be successful and lower my risk to reoffend. Yeah. We were looking at the in the amended budget and this just as a amended budget question.
Mm-hmm. They had I think the Senate had taken out some of the county education incentives.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about what that does?
I can. I'm not. I can't speak on the cut. I'm trying to flip to my projection sheet on it. So if you give me a half a second here.
Mm-hmm.
As you're aware, last year the General Assembly and the governor funded incentives to the county camps to provide programming while they're in their custody. As you look at our projection, we were budgeted $1.3 million. We're projecting to spend about $1.5 million. So we are projecting to use the total appropriation that was allotted to us. So I can't speak on the cut. We'll have to figure out how to make up that difference in our budget. Obviously, it'll have an impact on us.
Mm-hmm. So, but you're providing funding to the county facilities so that they can provide a certain level of education.
Yes, sir. They get paid based on the slots that they provide, and those slots are funded based on the amount of money that was appropriated. So that $1.3 million, basically, we're taking the slots, dividing it by the number of participants, and spreading the money to our counties to give them an incentive to actually help us lower the recidivism rate. So what this will do is we'll have to go back and look at a recalculation or cut off the slots.
And these are not inmates that are headed into our prison population. These are just the county local.
No, they are in our prison population. What we have is contracts with 23 county camps. They house about 5,000 of the state inmates. The trade-off is we pay them a reduced amount to house them, but they get some labor for the community. Mm-hmm. But they are the state inmates, and they are our responsibility.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Questions from the committee? All right. Mr. Commissioner, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for all the staff that you have here with you today, and appreciate their hard work behind the scenes. And so thank you again for coming. All right, next on our agenda, we have a presentation to hear from the private prisons. That there are four private prisons in the state, and we have an opportunity to hear from them. And then when they're finished, we'll adjourn briefly to go over to the Capitol for a vote, the full appropriations meeting. And then so we have Blake Davis is the Senior VP from GEO Corporation, or GEO Group, sorry. And then Jerry Langford is the Senior Director of Core Civic. If y'all would just both kind of work your way up. And we'll let Mr. Davis go first in his presentation. And you have so members in the front row, we've got a couple of folders back here I need to get to you. So we'll get them back to you. There's some information from Core and from GEO. Let's see. Do you have these, Courtney? Okay, gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys today. My name is Blake Davis, and I'm the Vice President of the Eastern Region for the GEO Group. Prior to joining GEO in 2013, I had a 25-year career with the Federal Bureau of Prisons and ultimately was promoted to the Assistant Director and ran operations for that agency. At the GEO Group, I'm currently responsible for overseeing 21 correctional and detention facilities, representing a total capacity of approximately 29,000 beds and 5,000 staff members. I'm based in Charlotte, in North Carolina presently. 4 of these facilities are located in Georgia. The Riverbend Correctional Facility located in Milledgeville, which is operated on behalf of the Georgia Department of Corrections, and 3 federal facilities, 1 in Lovejoy and 2 in Folkestone. The GEO Group built, own, and operates the Riverbend Correctional Facility since 2011. The Riverbend facility has a capacity of 1,500. Presently, it has a 1,493 is the population today. We currently employ 283 full-time employees and have a starting and our starting wage for correctional officers are $12 per hour. The disparity in these wages in comparison to the nearby state facilities is nearly $3 an hour presently, thus making our recruitment and retention very difficult and challenging right now for GEO. With the recent implementation of our industry-leading rehabilitation and recidivism reduction program, the Continuum of Care, we have now invested $1 million of our own funds at that facility, which is above and beyond what was requested, what is required by the state in our contract presently. We are proud to report the Continuum of Care reflects Governor Deal's and this General Assembly's commitment to preparing individuals for reentry into the community and to reduce recidivism. With that in mind, it's important to emphasize that the Riverbend facility has not had a cost of living adjustment pursuant to the contract terms, and the current blended per diem has remained at the same level since the contract's inception nearly 5 years ago, a little bit over 5 years ago. While there have been previous discussions about contractual adjustments to our per diem in the prior years, when the state faced difficult budget challenges, we understood the need to share the burden and agreed to forego and request the per diem adjustments during those years. However, with recent wage increases for the state employees and a stronger financial outlook for the state, there's now the opportunity to resolve these unintended consequences and address the pay inequities for our workforce. As you would expect, the pay disparity has caused us some issues. We currently have a 59% turnover rate at that facility during the last year, and it is definitely adversely impacting our ability to track and retain employees at that facility, especially when some of the state facilities are just across the street. We recognize the challenge as a workforce issue, so let me be specific about our intent. If funds are appropriated by the legislature, they would be utilized as a 100% pass-through to the employees in the form of a wage increase and a pay enhancement. 100% of that would be passed through to the employees. In conclusion, let me reiterate that we are fully committed to our partnership with the state of Georgia and the excellent relationship that we have with Commissioner Greg Dozier and the Department of Corrections. We will continue to work every day to be part of the solution for the state's correctional needs. We would respectfully request your favorable consideration of an appropriation which would be used exclusively for salary increases and which ultimately would have a positive impact on our employees, their families, the local community, and the state of Georgia. Thank you for this opportunity to present today, and I'd be glad to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. What is the number value?
The difference between $12 and $15, the $3 is about $2.1 million to bring that value up to pay equity.
Thank you. Mr. Langford.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much for the time today. I want to just start off by saying how we at Core Civic are appreciative for the partnership we have here in the state of Georgia. I think I have told probably each of you independently, and I've certainly expressed this to the commissioner and his folks there at the department, that in our opinion, this is the way a public-private partnership should look. We appreciate all of the support from the department and appreciate the long-standing partnership we've had here in the state of Georgia. My name is Jerry Langford. I am with Core Civic, formerly CCA. I'm based in Nashville, Tennessee, and I have worked here in Georgia, amongst other states, for the past 8 years. Over that time, we've had various conversations as it relates to per diems, and so I do want to address that today. But first, highlight the facilities we have here in the state. We've got 3 that we own and manage for the state of Georgia. One in Wheeler County, one in Coffee County, and then also one in Jenkins County. In addition, we have 2 federal facilities, one in McRae and one in Stewart. In total, we have about 6,500 inmates, Georgia inmates, in custody at our facilities, and we've got close to between 900 and 1,000 employees at those facilities. 2 of them in particular, Coffee and Wheeler, we've been in partnership since 1998. And over that time, we have expanded the capacity at those facilities. And then the 3rd facility, Jenkins, we built that in 2010. And so we've been in partnership with that facility for about 5 years as well. We have, I think, done a lot of really good and innovative things at our facility that we're proud of. And I say we partner with the department on those programs. 2 that I would like to note specifically are the diesel mechanic and welding programs. This is something I believe the governor was interested in moving forward. The department was definitely interested in moving forward, and so we worked with them through a competitive RFP process, and the result was that we invested a few million of our own capital into the facilities there at Coffee and Wheeler, and now have 2 new diesel mechanic and welding programs at each of those facilities. Cut the ribbon in December. Classes started in January, and we're looking forward to graduating well over 100 inmates through those programs each year, with the end state being those individuals get out, get good paying jobs, and don't reoffend. I think that's something that we're all interested in, certainly as members here, but then also specifically as taxpayers as well. Our request is a 2% request, I think, which is consistent with what is on your sheet there. I would like to note that specifically at our Coffee and Wheeler facilities, we have not seen an increase in almost 15 years. And we understand there have been, certainly years where we've had budget difficulties, and, we share in those and understand, but, certainly as you all are looking at this year's budget, would ask for you to consider that request for not only Coffee and Wheeler, but also Jenkins as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm open to answer any questions you all have as well.
Okay, we have questions from members of the committee. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here. And this is a question for both of y'all. When is the last time that the employees got a raise for both of y'all?
Yes, our facility, we gave a raise 2 years ago, and I believe we gave a raise 2 years prior to that as well. And I know we're looking this year at giving a raise again.
And are those 2%, or do you remember?
I think it varies. Sometimes it's pegged to CPI, but I do believe the last 2 have been 2.5%.
Okay, thank you.
Our facility has not provided any raises in the 5 years that we've opened. We started at $12, and we're at $12 today for starting wages.
Thank you. And then, if I might, Mr. Chairman, have in the same time period, have either of your companies provided increases in salary or bonuses for your CEO, CFO, COO?
Yes, I would have to say I'm not sure what the exact amount is, but I'm sure they have been compensated. I would say that when we give a pay increase, it is generally a pay increase across the board for all members within the company. And so that's everyone from correctional officers to wardens to folks in our corporate office. So yes, I would expect that our executive team has as well.
Thank you.
And I would have to get that data for you, ma'am. I don't have that right off the top of my head, but I would assume that the warden probably did at some point receive a pay increase, but I can get that for you.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could see it and see how it compares. You know, what's the delta between the percentage increase that the CEO and top level folks got versus the employees? And then if I might, well, just one final question, Mr. Chairman. What were the profits posted by both of your companies last fiscal?
I would honestly need to get that for you. So I'm happy to, get that for you and submit it to you and other committee members.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll also provide that as well.
Thank you.
Chairman Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a statement that the starting salary for the officers are $12 an hour. What is it for those that in the federal, when you run in the federal system, are they paid the same thing or is it different?
I'll speak for our company, and I'm assuming it's probably somewhat consistent. The federal government establishes wage determination rates in certain areas, and so that will vary facility by facility, state to state. And so I could certainly look at our two federal facilities, one in McRae and one in Stewart, and tell you that. But that starting wage is usually determined by the federal government.
So it's not the $12 I guess is what I'm asking.
No, sir, it is higher.
It would be higher.
Yes, sir.
Is that true also with your facility, sir?
It's substantially higher with wage determination, probably nearly $5 higher.
All right. And Representative Gravely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for both of you. Are both of your facilities at full capacity from a staff perspective, or do you have a problem retaining? I mean, sometimes I know in some of my local county law enforcement, fire, whatnot, we'll train folks and then we see them leave and go to another department, another county because they can get a higher salary or the benefit package is different. Do y'all see that in your industry?
I can speak at Riverbend. I had a 59% turnover rate last year. I'm having folks leave at record levels to the state facilities and other locations. We are probably close to 20% under full hire right now, and it's a constant churn. I'm not getting stability in the workforce there because folks leave for a couple more dollars an hour. And so it's pretty consistent, and it's been that way for a couple of years at Riverbend.
Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
So you're not at full capacity?
No,
right?
I'm recruiting every day, but it's very difficult to recruit at $12 an hour at Riverman.
And I would echo the same thing. I will tell you, we've got some great tenured staff at our facilities, but we are competing with other correctional facilities in the area, other manufacturing jobs, go down the list, and so this certainly helps offset that. As you can imagine, very important to retain those folks who have been trained and have been doing that job, so this certainly would help with that.
Our chairman from Liberty County, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know at Geo you have a 59% turnover. What's your turnover at CoreCivic?
I can get that for you for our three facilities. I do think it's a little bit lower, but I will tell you, consistent with his comment, we are constantly recruiting, trying to get individuals to come and work at those facilities, but I certainly can get that information.
And both of your starting pay is about $12 an hour on the state side.
Yes, sir.
State side. And both the facilities are located, as are most correctional facilities, in rural areas. It's even amazing in rural areas that you can hire people for $12 an hour. I can see why you have 59% turnover, and you compete. But that's very interesting. It's always fascinating. I've had a problem being a rural legislator and being on development authority. I've always told folk in the Rust Belt, please don't come and move us to almost slave labor rates just because we're rural folk. We appreciate that, that you're here. At least you're talking about 100% to increase pay. That's commendable that you're doing that. Okay.
Thank you, Representative. So just a couple of questions, then we're going to adjourn. to go over to the Capitol for a vote. The the salary that Mr. Langford, what CORE is talking about doing is not a salary increase, but a per diem increase. Is that correct?
Well, yes, sir. It would be a per diem increase, but that would go towards salaries as well. Again, I think we are looking at another salary increase this year, and so I am not sure that the 2% we've requested would necessarily cover all of that. But again, we have given salary increases over the last few years, and again, I believe we're slated to as well, and so that money would certainly be used to cover those increases.
And is it intended for those increases to go to the CO, the correctional officers, or is it going across the board?
Yes, sir. More than likely, the correctional officers, and probably some other lower level management folks at the facility, but usually that is used for correctional officers to ensure that we can recruit and retain good talent there.
And you had mentioned the investment that you've already made in some of the technical training that CORE has made in the past, but is it not true that the state also has in previous budgets allocated approximately about $2 million to offset that?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay. Representative Evans, we do need to step across. Do you have time? Is it quick? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's really more a question for you, Mr. Chairman, or Commissioner Dozier, if he's still here. I was wondering how the pay at the private prisons compares to what we're paying in our facilities, the state-run facilities.
I can just answer what you guys have done for us. If you look at starting pay at all of our facilities other than level 5, which we have 9 level 5s, which are our worst, is our highest risk level facility. They start out at $27,000. Went from just over $24,000 a couple of years ago to $27,000 last year to support you guys. At our level 5 facilities, starting pay is $30,000. So I'm not sure exactly how that competes with them, but if you do take the 27 and spread it across 2,080 hours, it's right around that $12. But I don't know if that's apples to apples.
Well, that $12 based on 40 hours is going to be somewhere around $25,000 a year. So it's going to be $24,000 to $25,000 a year. So they're still going to be $2,500 to $3,000 lower than this.
If they stay where they are, but if they get up to $15, then it'll be different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I meant to make one more comment myself, and I think I have discussed this, but our intent certainly is not to request funding that is already within the department's budget. Certainly recognize they have priorities that they need to take care of. I guess our request would be for funds that are in general revenue and that are above and beyond what the department's already requested. So I just wanted to be sure that I was clear about what we were working toward there.
And I think that's probably a sentiment shared by Mr. Davis as well.
Absolutely. We want this aside from the DOC's budget.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gentlemen, I appreciate that very much. And members of the committee, I appreciate your questions for these gentlemen. Those are good questions. What we'll do now is we're going to adjourn. It's almost 2:20 to give us time to walk over for the appropriations hearing. We anticipate that we'll be back by 3, but I would just stay in tune, because when I get back, I'm just going to go start right up and move into the next matter. And the next matter will be DJJ. So I know Commissioner Avery Niles is here, so I knew you would be. So we're going to take up that in a few minutes. Thank you.